Hey, I just watched Poor Things, really weird movie. Today I'm gonna be talking about synths. Back in the day, when young me pirated his first, when I bought my first DAW, I remember one day I said, fuck it, let me see what these synths are about. I went into the plugins and I opened up Harmor. And I said, what the fuck is all this? It was visual overload, overstimulation, way too much stuff on here. I pretty much had a breakdown. After that, I decided, let me try a different synth. I picked up Silent 1, same result. I opened up Citrus, same result. 3X Oscillator. It was a bit better, but I didn't know what I was looking at. And the thing is, I'm a very visual learner, so it was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around seeing a bunch of knobs and buttons and levers. It didn't really register with me at all. And I really just wanted to make shit. I was going through my EDM phase. I had just seen Porter Robinson live. It was a life-changing experience. So I got through all of that pretty much by using presets. But even then, I lacked the ability to really fine-tune the sound to what I could hear in my head. That's why today, I'm going to be giving you all the information that young me probably wish he had back then. Now, first things first, I just want to give a quick little breakdown of synths. Don't worry, I'm not going to go on too long, so you don't have to skip this part. I might even put some Minecraft gameplay at the bottom for you if you can't pay attention. At a technical level, synthesizers make sound by feeding electricity into a current called an oscillator. Digital synths model with the software, and they essentially create sound from scratch using electricity. That's pretty much how it works. Some dystopian, some really futuristic Blade Runner shit. Pretty cool. But they all kind of have the same type of framework, I've noticed. The main synths that you're going to see are subtractive, additive, wavetable, and FM AM, or at least those are the ones that I see the most. Now, I'm not gonna go too in depth on any of these, nor am I even gonna bother explaining them. My goal with this video is just to provide you with the fundamental understanding of the common functions you'll see across different synths. I'll give you the basic building blocks so you can take that information and use it with pretty much any synth that you choose. Alright, so for this demonstration, I'm going to be using Serum, because Serum has a lot of visual information you can see here, and it really helped me understand all this stuff. Like I said, I'm a visual learner. I really learned all my synths basics with Serum. I think I had Serum, I had Massive, and Silent. But most of my stuff I learned through Serum. Serum is where I really started to understand what the fuck was going on. Serum is a wavetable synth, but remember, like I said, we're not concerned with the type of synths right now. So just tuck that in the back of your head and your gray matter. If you forget it, doesn't really matter. Just don't worry about it for right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flowchart how I mentally view like the process of working through a synth. So first things first, we've got the oscillator. This is the source of the sound, and the oscillator creates raw sound using a waveform as its basis. And there's four main waves. It's gonna be this one right here, the sine wave, which sounds like this. We have this, which is the saw wave. It'll also sometimes look like this, sounds like this. Yeah, it's that sound. You know that sound. It's that sound. Next we have the triangle, which is, video games. And then we have the square wave, which is even more video games. All right, cool. So you may be wondering what all these other tabs full of waveforms are. Don't worry about it. Like I said, Serum is a wavetable synth, so as a result, it's got a ton of different waveforms for you to use. Just know that these are all built off of the basic four type of waveforms I just talked about. The sine, the saw, the triangle, and the square. But yeah, Serum's got a ton of these things. I mean, you can even throw Hatsune Miku in this bitch. Hatsune Miku waveforms. Additionally, you have another oscillator right here, and this is where the fun with experimentation can kind of start. You can combine these two oscillators to make weird new sounds that you can't make with just one. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. And over here, most all synths will have oscillator functions here. There's usually a pitch control, which for Serum is right here. For like Silent, it's over here. Every synth is going to have something like this, and you can fine tune it. Here in Serum, you can go by octave. There's usually a fine pitch control and a regular pitch control. So it'll be by octaves. It'll go down to semitones and all the way down to cents. It depends on how surgical you're trying to get it. And then a common function you'll see between a lot of synths is the detune knob here. And you'll see when I mess with it. Oh my God. I'm sorry. That's a horrible sound. Let me put it back to 0. Here, 0, enter. You'll see it doesn't do anything. So detune only works when there is more than one voice. And that's what this unison knob is for here. It might be called something else. I know in Silent it is called voices. You just got to find out what it is for the synth you're using. But you'll see there it says creates multiple voices for oscillator A on a single MIDI note. And now that we have, say 7 voices, listen to this. Wow, look at that. It's fucking EDM immediately. Which is cool. So the detune knob, like I said, is pretty common amongst a bunch of soft synths. Don't look at the rest of these. Don't worry about them. This is all Serum stuff. So the thing about detuning is if I explain what it does, it's just going to confuse you, right? I mean, obviously it detunes the different voices, but like technically explaining what it does never really helped me when I was learning. So, I mean, I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to show you what it does. Like it just makes the sound wider through detuning. And this is why I like Serum, because you can get a visual look of pretty much what it's doing. So you can see it spread out like that. So that's how my 13-year-old brain kind of internalized it. Detuning makes sounds thicker. It gives you that big, wide super saw sound, gives you those chunky basses, all that, you know, the Porter Robinson shit, the Blade Runner shit. But you gotta be careful about making it too detuned, because it can get too wide. Like this, and you can start sounding really crusty, and you lose control of the mix, and everything gets sloppy, and nothing's tight, and like you're 50 hours into the song, and you're trying to mix it, but you can't because your brain is so used to this really wide synth sound. Most digital synths can detune, but not all of them have a knob like this that does it. Most of the ones I use do, though, but it can be pretty different. I know Massive has a different way of detuning, and a couple other ones. And keep in mind, the amount of voices does affect the type of detune there is, because it's how many voices are there singing in your chorus or whatever. That's just a way I thought about it. I usually, for super saws, I think 7's a good number. I think 7 is a number I like to sit around doing that. And additionally, you can detune both oscillators, make some really wide, huge sounds, some really epic shit. So next on the mental flowchart, we have filters. And hey, don't these look familiar? We've talked about these before. Filters, as you know, they allow you to attenuate the harmonics of a sound, and this can be done by changing the cutoff of the filter and also by changing its resonance. You know, we have all the basic filter controls here. And here you can assign it to each of the oscillators. So if you only want it on like oscillator B and you want to leave oscillator A alone, just click that off. And it'll only affect the oscillator you assign it to. Most synths will have the basic filter functions and some additional things depending on what you're using. Serum has a lot of different filters for you to use and a lot of different interesting things you can mess with. You can make some really interesting sounds. Like I said, filters, they're used to like adjust the harmonics of a sound, not just for like low pass, high pass cutting. So you kind of gotta evolve your thinking past that and think of it as more of a modulation tool when using it in synths. And then next up down here, we have envelopes. Wow, another familiar sight. By now, I hope you're starting to notice that there's like a lot of similarity in the logic and tools used across various digital audio functions. A lot of things use ADSR, a lot of things use filters. So this knowledge can be applied to a lot of things. That's why I think it's so good to build up a solid foundation of fundamental things used in audio production, because a lot of it is shared. But like I said, if you've been watching these in order, you should know about ADSR. But if you're just clicking on this, we can run through it. So we have here the attack, and that's how long it takes for the sound to reach its peak. You bring the attack up, it'll take 1 second for it to reach peak volume. Look at that. It even gives you a visual of it. Next up, we have the decay, and that's how long it takes for the peak to go to the sustain volume, which is right here. So we'll put the decay at like 500 milliseconds, and the sustain will be at 10. So it'll take 500 milliseconds for the sound to go from its peak volume to the sustain volume. And the sustain volume is the volume that we set it to stay at while the key is being held. You'll see this. It stays right there. Follow this little dot. And finally, there's the release, and that's how long it takes for the volume to go back to 0 after you let the key go. Look at this. I'm holding the key, I'm gonna let it go. And look at that. I think that's the best I've explained ADSR so far. I've done it like 3 times, and I think this was the best one I've done. So there you go, basic ADSR functions. Serum decided to be, a little different and add the hold function to the ADSR. Like hold function is that, weird transfer kit that's just sitting at the table. It just keeps the sound at the peak amplitude volume for a little bit. It's cool. It gives you a little bit more control over things. But, it's got basic ADSR stuff. And then, hold can sit at our lunch table if he wants to, I guess. Additionally, most of these synths will have LFO functions as well. And like I said, we've talked about LFOs before. Look at that. Filters, envelopes, LFOs, it's all coming together, baby. LFOs produce inaudible waves that are used for modulation. I don't have a picture this time, but just know that the wave, it'll go up and down, and then up and down, and then up and down. And whatever function you tie the LFO to, we'll tie it to the cutoff. It'll go up and down, and up and down, and up and down, depending on how fast you set the LFO to do that. We'll set it to, 64? Here, we'll put it on the volume. Put it on the volume of this. So you'll hear it'll go up and down. Super fast. There you go, LFOs. Now, most synths allow the LFOs and the envelopes to not only be tied to the filter, but to be tied to just any function at all on the synth, which is kind of insane. It gives you a lot of control over what to do, and this is where a lot of cool sounds can come from. Obviously, you see all these fucking knobs everywhere. It can get pretty complicated, and you can kind of get lost in what to do. There's a lot of room for creativity. Finally, here we have the effects section, and every synth is going to have different effects. The most common ones you're going to see are things like distortion, reverb, delay. There's usually another filter somewhere, and there's usually an EQ. And it just all depends. This is the ones that Serum has. Show you the ones that Silent has right here. ARP, distort, phaser, chorus, EQ, delay, reverb, compression. Keep in mind, you can also use your own effects after you set up the synth. You can send your own third-party effects or in-house effects from whatever DAW you're using. You're not limited just to the ones within the synth. Like anything you put after will color the sound as well. And I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I wanted to keep it very basic. I don't want to talk too deep about each specific synth. Maybe I'll do a video on just Serum or just Silent, because those are the ones I use a lot. I just want to give you the basic foundation. And this information can pretty much be applied to any synth because it's the basic foundation of how synthesis is done. So with the knowledge of oscillators, filters, envelopes, and the LFO, you're pretty much set to use any synth you're interested in. Synths, synthesis, synths, synth essence of synthesis, synthesis, synth essence, the essence of synthesis. Synthesis, synths, synths, the essence of synthesis, synthesis, synth essence.